Hello guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Dave Just. I am currently working as an automation engineer at a managed service provider in Maryland, and I've been playing around a lot with Azure OpenAI and Copilot Studio, building custom copilots, testing out all the capabilities. And one thing I wanted to demonstrate, which I haven't seen any other videos on YouTube talking about this, was using a more advanced method of connecting your data with a Copilot Studio bot by using an Azure OpenAI connection and using Azure AI search. So I'd like uh, to explain how that works. So here's the official Microsoft Learn document on using Azure OpenAI, and talks about connecting, adding connection to Azure OpenAI services. So this requires a few things, and the reason why I wanted to talk about this, why I think it's good to know about, and you might want to use this, it's because the default experience in Copilot Studio for me it was a little lacking. By default, you can add different knowledge sources, and they just made an update here with the Microsoft Build announcement, where they increase the number of different knowledge bases you can use. But I had some issues with the default OpenAI model that they're using in Copilot Studio and the way it was answering some questions, and also the built-in data sources that you can connect to were a bit lacking. I needed a little bit more flexibility. So I'm going to show you how you can create your own Azure AI search index and then use that within Copilot Studio to be able to quickly deploy a Copilot bot for use in Microsoft Teams or your own website without having to fully code the bot yourself, which is the great part about using Copilot Studio, in my opinion, is just how easy it is to set up. So you're going to need, obviously, an Azure subscription, which if you don't have one and you wanted to play around with this, you can set up a free trial with $200 of credit, which is going to be plenty for what we're going to be doing here. And then you're going to need a few other things. You're going to need Azure AI services, previously known as cognitive services. So actually, I'll just go ahead and just pretend like I'm going to create some new resources. So let's see what that looks like. So if you just have a blank Azure subscription, you go in here and create. Let's look for Azure AI. Wait for it to load here. So you're going to need this Azure AI search, but you're also going to need this right here, Azure AI services. We'll need that. And then the last thing you'll need is you have two options here. You can either use Azure AI Studio or just OpenAI Studio. I'd recommend, unless you want to play around with other models besides the OpenAI models, I would just stick with the OpenAI Studio. It's a little bit simpler. If you just search for, I think, just OpenAI. The Azure AI Studio is a little bit more focused towards development crowd. But I would recommend just starting out with this Azure OpenAI Studio. This is going to give you access to all of the OpenAI models, including the new GPT-4o. So I already have all of these set up. So once you have that set up, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to need Azure AI Search Index. and you're going to need some data to put in there. So I'm going to demonstrate what I did is I took the official PowerShell reference documentation from GitHub, and I downloaded that. I wrote a script. I cloned the repository, put it down here, zoom this in, just cloned it down to a folder on my C drive, MS Docs. If we go in here, this is all the official reference documentation, all the different commandlets, and all the about documents for PowerShell. And then I wrote a simple PowerShell script to kind of handle downloading all this and then putting it into a blob index. Just open this with Notepad++. It'll be simple. Yeah, so the other Azure resource you'll need is a blob storage. So if I go back to my resource group here, I already have a blob storage resource created, and then I'd recommend using that Azure Storage Explorer. So once you have that storage account created, you would go in here and you would create a new blob storage. You can either do it here in the Storage Explorer or you could do it in the web portal. Once you have that created, you're going to need to get a connection string. So you could go ahead and actually go onto blob containers. You're going to need a blob container set up. So I set up this one called PowerShell reference. You go and right click on that. You'll get shared access signature. And then here you can put an expiration time for how long this is good for. For the demo, you could just leave that the way it is. You're going to need to add some permissions. You'll need add, create, and write. And then you'll click create. And then you'll get your, you'll need to copy this. If you're going to use my script, you'll need that. Put that here in the connection string. All right, and then, and if you were to go ahead and run this script, this would do everything for you, and this will automatically add the files into your blob storage. One thing that's important to note here is I'm adding some custom metadata on each blob file, and what I'm adding is a URL path. And this is going to be important because this is used for providing reference links when the Copilot bot references documents in this index. So if I go and look at any of the files in here, for example, this document on using expand archive, if I go into the properties, you'll see I have metadata here, and the metadata is called URL, and then it has the URL that goes directly to this article here. And if I pop that into my browser, oops, that is not the correct URL. I did not actually copy that correctly. Let me try that again. Okay. It takes you right to the Microsoft Learn page. So once you have your files into a blob storage, then we can use Azure AI Search to ingest these blob files and index them, put them into an index. All right, so how do we do that? If you go into, once you have your Azure AI Search resource created, you're going to use this option right here, import and vectorize data. This is just a simple wizard to import your data from blob storage. So if I go to blob storage account, it already sees the blob storage I created. Go and select the blob container. If you wanted to only select a specific folder in that blob container, you could, but I'm not going to here. Another thing you can enable is deletion tracking. So this will handle if you delete any files from that blob storage. The next time the indexer runs, it will delete the corresponding indexed document to keep your index clean and fresh. So if we go and click next, then it's going to ask us to connect our OpenAI service. And then next thing we're going to need an embedding model. So we're going to have to stop right there for a second and go over, you'll need your OpenAI service created. So when you go to create this, it's going to tell you that you have to fill out a form to request this, because this is done by request only. And in my experience, it takes about 24 hours. And you just fill out the form. It's just a simple Microsoft form asking you some details about your Azure subscription, why you want to use the service. It's very simple. So once you get approved for this and get this created, you're going to need to open this and go to the Azure OpenAI Studio. And then you're going to need to create an embedding deployment. And you also need a deployment for the OpenAI model that you want to use with the Copilot. And that's very simple. I'll show you how to do that here in a second. Okay, so you're going to go to deployments. You're going to create a new deployment. And under model, you're going to need to use an embedding model. And I've used this embedding Ada 002. Seems to work pretty well. So you would select that. You create a name for the deployment. You can use the default model version, standard deployment type. I already have that created. So once you have that created, and then while you're in here, you can go ahead and create deployments for the OpenAI model you want to use. I have one for GPT-3.5 Turbo with the 16,000 token window, and I have one for GPT-4o for testing. And then other than selecting those models, I left everything else at default, the model version and deployment type. All right, so back to import and vectorize data. So you're going to use your embedding model. And this is used by Azure AI Search to chunk the documents when it takes in and indexes your documents from blob storage. It's going to break it up into small chunks. That is going to make it easier to search. And then it's also going to use that to vectorize the data to create numeric vectors that is used in searching. I don't know 100% how that works, to be honest. You're welcome to read up on it, but it's just a different method for searching. There's also semantic search that where it uses that model to try to take the query, like keyword query, and look for words that have similar meaning. So the semantics. So those are the two types of searches. As far as I understand, Copilot Studio only supports the semantic search, but we'll go ahead and use both. So once you have all that selected, you're going to say, yes, I know this is going to cost money. Go ahead and click next. And then if you have images in your blob storage, you can also use this option to OCR those images. I don't have any images here. These are just text documents. And then you're going to want this selected, enable semantic ranker. That's going to be needed for your semantic searching. And then under schedule index, here you can go ahead and set up a schedule, but you can always do this later as well. So you just leave it at once and then go ahead and click next and then create. Oh, and here you can change the name of the index, or it'll just create a default generic name for you. I'll just left that at the default. So it's creating the indexer right now. I'm going to tell you the status. Going to go close that. And then we're going to need to change a couple things now that we have that created. So first we need to go to that newly created index, and we're going to need to add a field to it. By default, it's only going to add a content field for searching and title. But we also need, and also the storage path, but we need to add that URL, that custom metadata. Remember I said I was adding custom metadata to the blob files for URL? We need to add that as a field here in the index so that can be returned in the search results to the Copilot. So we're going to go ahead and click add field. We're going to leave it at EDM string. We're going to say the field name is URL. And just like the title, we're going to make this retrievable, filterable, searchable. And then when you select searchable, it's going to ask you for an analyzer. Just leave this at standard. Click save. And then save again. And then we need to make one other change. So under skill, we need to go to skill sets, and we need to open up that skill set. So the skill set name is going to match the index name. So I'm going to select this one, and then we're going to have to edit this skill set. So if we go in here, we have a JSON definition of the skill set. We need to go down here to where it shows index projections. And we need to add, so these are the all those fields in the index. Basically, it's telling the index, the skill set, how to populate these fields. We need to add a mapping for that URL. So you can just copy this mapping for title, add a comma, and then go ahead and paste that in. And then we're going to change this. Obviously, we need to change this to URL for the name, and then the source is going to be /document /URL. Okay, and go ahead and save that. And then last change we need to make here is on the indexer. So go into the indexer. Go ahead and click reset, because we're gonna need to reset and rerun this indexer. And then goes to the indexer definition, JSON. And then what we need to do here is under field mappings, just go ahead and clear this out so it's a blank array. So all we want is the square brackets. And the reason why I'm doing this is because from what I read, if you clear out field mappings, it will automatically populate the field mappings for you. So that way we ensure that the field mappings for the indexer match the field mappings in our skill set and the fields in our index. So go ahead and click save on that. And then you can go ahead and kick off the indexer. Go and let it run. All right, so once you have that all done, and then once the indexer is complete, you'll need, it takes a couple, well, it's going to take a little bit. It's going to probably take, like, depending on how many documents you have in there, could take 30 minutes, could take an hour. Just wait for it to finish. Once that's finished, go ahead and go to, okay. I don't know if it actually ran or not, so I'm going to tell it to run again. But just for sake of time, I already have an index created, and it's already ready to go. So go back to your Azure OpenAI Studio, which I have here already open, and then you're going to go to this chat playground. So in the chat playground, select the deployment you want to test out. So here I just have the GPT-3.5 Turbo, or you could use GPT-4o or GPT-4, whatever you want to use. Right now, GPT-3.5 is going to be the cheapest option, and I found it actually works pretty damn well, even with even though it's the older model and it's not as good. I found that when you're using it with an Azure AI search index to use that RAG scenario, that retrieval augmented generation, it really improves the answers that it gives by grounding it in that knowledge. So yeah, in my experience, even the 3.5 Turbo provides really good answers. And it's going to be cheaper than GPT-4 or 4o. 4.0 is going to be the next cheapest, but 3.5 is still going to be the cheapest option. So I'm going to leave it at 3.5, and then go ahead and over here under setup, you're going to need to select this add your data. And then under data source, we're going to use Azure AI search, and then go and select the search index. And then you can leave these blank. You don't need to select these. For custom field mappings or the vector search, go ahead and click next. Under search type, leave this at semantic. And then go and select that semantic configuration that gets automatically created when we do that import and vectorize, and then go ahead and save and close. And then last thing I'm going to do here, under the prompt, I'm going to go ahead and change this system prompt. So by default, I'm going to say you're an AI assistant that helps people find information. I'm going to change this. I'm going to say you are a PowerShell expert. Answer questions concisely. Provide PowerShell. I'm going to tell it to provide PowerShell coding examples when appropriate. Okay. And I'll click apply to those changes. Continue. Okay, so now we can start asking questions. How do I unzip a file with PowerShell? Just ask that. So now the GPT model is going to be querying our search index and then using the search results to ground its answer and then give us a reference to its answer. So it gave me a nice, short, simple response with the coding example. So instead of unzip a file with PowerShell, you can use expand archive commandlet, and here's how you use it. So expand archive, path to file, destination path. And then if we click on reference and click on this citation, it's going to show us the citation it used. It's interesting. I don't know why it's showing about pipelines, because that's not correct. Let's try a different question. Let's try, what are the automatic variables in PowerShell? Okay, and it's still responding for some reason. My browser is frozen up. There we go. Okay. So give me some examples of some automatic variables, and then it gave you the references. Okay, so here it's referencing the correct documents I would expect. So go ahead and click on that. About variables, and then about automatic variables. And there we go. If I wanted to look at the reference, I could see every automatic variable. That's perfect. That's exactly what I would expect and what I would want. So once you've tested out and you've confirmed that everything's working, that it's properly referencing your search index, if you want to go and connect this to a Copilot Studio bot, well, first thing you'll need, obviously, you'll need Copilot Studio. If you don't have that, you can sign up for a trial. Everything I'm doing here is all on trial basis. I haven't paid a penny for any of this, just a demo to you. So once you have Copilot Studio set up, and that's just copilotstudio.microsoft.com, all you need is to sign up, and that you don't have to wait. It'll just create it for you immediately. You'll go here to deploy to, and there'll be an option, a new Copilot in Copilot Studio. So we'll go ahead and select that, and then click continue. So what this will do, it'll go ahead and spin up a new Copilot, and it's gonna automatically create a topic in the Copilot, the conversational boosting topic. It's gonna turn that on, and it's gonna add a connection to my Azure OpenAI deployment. So I can just skip that. Go and give it my name. I'm gonna call this demo Copilot, and then click create. Okay, my Copilot finished creating, and if we go here to topics, go ahead and click on system, and then let's look at the conversational boosting topic. Wait for that to load. And then in here under data sources, I'm going to click edit. Just so we can examine this, what's going on here. Under classic data, you're going to see your OpenAI connection, and then under connection properties, it's going to automatically have our deployment name. It'll fill all this out for you. API version, tokens, limit, temperature, all of that. Okay. So if you want to go and test this out, let's go ahead and test it out here. Let's say, ask it the same thing. What are the automatic partial? Oh, and let me move my camera so you can actually see what the response is. Oh, and there we go. We got our answer. Let me just zoom in so you'll be able to see this better. And there we go. It tells me about the automatic variables, and it gave me a bunch of references. And then if I click on these, so this is where that URL metadata comes into play here. Because if I click on any of these links, and if you just hover over them and look at them, click on this one about variables. That's going to open up the live URL for that file that was indexed. Well, for the Microsoft Learn document. That's why it was important to add that metadata, to add that URL mapping, because without that, it's gonna just reference the blob storage. And if you wanted to use this Copilot in Teams, it just won't work. For my testing, it doesn't say that anywhere in the documentation that you need to have this URL field. But in my testing, if I didn't have that URL field populated to anything, it would just fail and bomb out. And when I tested the Copilot in Teams, as long as I had that URL field populated, it did work. And if anyone's curious about a workaround for that, I can show you how to use a Power Automate flow to query to do the same thing essentially, to get answers from an OpenAI deployment using an Azure AI Search Index, but without needing that URL field, or without getting references back. So maybe you don't want to have the reference data returned. I could show you how to do that, because I am doing that internally in my job for a specific purpose. So yeah, so that's cool. So we're getting our references, we're getting our answers, our Copilot is grounded in the data that we provided. All right, so great. Okay, you have that all set up. So how do you, if you wanted to use this in Microsoft Teams, how do you do that? So what we need to do is go back to the overview tab here. We need to Actually, no, I'm sorry. We need to go to channels, and then we need to turn on Teams. Click on Microsoft Teams. Turn it on. Then you're going to need to publish the Copilot. And then once it's published, I'll show you in the other Copilot I already have set up here. So I already have this published and I already have Teams turned on. So if we go back to channels, go to Microsoft Teams. And then click on availability options. Here you'll have a link that you can share directly to other users or to use yourself. If you open that link, it's going to take you straight to Teams, and then it's going to install the bot for you. All right. That took a really long time to load for some reason, so I had the video paused. All right. So go ahead and open the, once that loads, go ahead and open the bot. And then now I can chat directly to it. And I was already testing this out earlier. So I can, let's ask something else. Let's say, what should I ask? How, oops, spelled that wrong. All right, so I asked, how do I list all files recursively in a directory with PowerShell? Let's see what it responds with. All right, to list the files, you can use get child item dash recurse, and then use the directory path. And then here it gives me the reference. So if I go and click on that, it'll take me directly to that learn document. Now, obviously, this is just an example. You probably wouldn't set this up for real with the PowerShell documentation. You know, the GPT models, they are already trained on PowerShell. They know how to do all, they know how PowerShell works. Unless you specifically wanted the reference links, there wouldn't really be any points to this. But, you know, I was just showing this as an easy demo. There are a ton of different things that you might want to use this for. For instance, at my work, I'm using this with our PSA to export and index service tickets. And I'm doing that on an hourly basis. So it's constantly updated and it's indexing every hour as well. You could do it with company files. You could do it with scraped websites. I mean, there's many different ideas you could use. The Azure AI search supports, I believe it supports text files, just plain text, markdown, PDFs, and Word files. So there's a good amount of support there for different file types that it can reference. Yeah, and like I said, in my experience, it provides, when you're using your own OpenAI deployment, it provides better answers in certain scenarios than the built-in model that's in Copilot Studio. So, you know, by default, you might be tempted to, well, just dump files into a SharePoint storage and connect that with the Copilot, with using that as the knowledge base. And certainly go ahead and try that. That'd be the first thing I recommend trying and see how that works for you. One thing to note though is you do need to set up authentication for SharePoint to work. And also, unless you have Copilot subscription in your tenant, you're not going to get semantic search results. You're just going to get the regular search experience, just like if you went to SharePoint and searched in the search box, which in my experience, sometimes the search results aren't that great. It's just basically doing a keyword search. Uh, so you might not always find the documents that you're looking for, unless your SharePoint documents are named well and well organized, which, in my experience, a lot of times they're not. Right? And a lot of these SharePoint sites, they're like really packed and overloaded with a lot of files, and there might be a lot of files in there that just aren't relevant to what you're trying to answer questions on, and or chat around the Copilot on. So yeah, this is another option for you for using RAG with Copilot Studio. And yeah, again, like I said, I haven't seen anyone else talking about this specifically, so that's why I thought I should go ahead and make a video about it. I am new to YouTube. I don't generally do YouTube videos. I do have a blog, which actually, sad to say, I haven't updated in a long time because I have two young kids, and finding time to write blog posts is difficult these days for me. But uh, I watch a lot of YouTube, and I want to do more YouTube content. So if you like this video, go and subscribe. Tell me what you liked about it. Tell me what you didn't like. I'm totally open to feedback. I know I'm new to this, so it's probably um, so hopefully only get better from here in terms of quality. uh, so yeah, and if you have any suggestions or any questions about any things that I covered here, anything you'd like me to cover, let me know. I plan on doing some more videos specifically about Azure AI and Copilot Studio. So yeah, if you want to see those, go and subscribe. I'll try to get another video out here in maybe like the next week or so. So there are some other things I like to talk about. Anyways, yeah, I hope you liked it. And yeah, feel free to leave a comment. Thanks.